Thank you, Neil. Bill worked with young writers as well, and I want you to meet one of them now. Please welcome Miriam Engel, 2007 Robinson Secondary School graduate.
We could get into a debate about which aspect of Bill's life was most influential, his generation's work, the Capitol Steps, or Cabbies, but I'll save us all the trouble and let you know that it was the last one. Bill's efforts to bring the good kind of high school drama more acclaim affected so many students, including me. I'm not an actor or singer or technician or dancer, I'm a writer. Bill didn't open the door for me, he showed me how to do it for myself. Senioritis was the product of last year's hard work. Here's the movie trailer.
It's only October.
Senior year is totally the most incredibly stupid thing and most hardest thing ever invented by adult things who totally don't know what we want to do in life.
Which is?
Be rich and famous. What else is there in life?
Senioritis is a threat to our school,
our nation,
our planet.
What should we do?
Fail them.
I love it.
Most of these kids just suck.
All our students want to get is praise.
All they ever want to get are A's.
Don't we know it?
These grades are not the end of the world.
It's the end of my world, Jared. 1 C, 4 D's.
Right.
If we don't give them A's, we never.
You're kidding me, right? Where are your real scores?
This is my problem.
Well, there are other colleges.
You never wanted me to go there anyway.
Yeah, it's time for playing tougher, kids. Your GPAs will suffer. C's and D's are very good for you.
As if they don't know, because if I don't go to college, then I won't get a good job. If I don't get a good job, then I won't make a lot of money. And if I don't make a lot of money, then I will lead a miserable life and die forgotten.
Instead, they're cutting classes, sleeping through lectures, and refusing to apply to other colleges.
We got the thing that you've been. This will just ignite us. We got a case that's severe. This will not unite us. We're gonna spend senior year. Go on, try to fight us. Spreading our flag to you here. Go on and ignite us. Now's the time and the place. We're gonna get in your face. You're gonna feel the disgrace. We got a real bad case of that outrageous, contagious high school student disease. Senioritis.
Playing Evelyn the lead is Molly Dickerson. She will be singing You're Asking Me, the song at the heart of senioritis.
You're asking me to describe myself and my life. Who am I? What have I done? A lot of what I've done and been has been for you. You're asking me, why do I want wanna go to college. It's what I'm supposed to do. It's what I've always been told to do. To prepare for life, whatever that means. To be successful, whatever that means. To please my parents, whatever that means. And to please me too, whatever that means. You're asking me, what will college mean for me? It means saying hello to new places, new friends, saying goodbye to family, and saying goodbye, but not really goodbye, to the boy I love. It means moving my world away from all that I love. You're asking me, write 1,000 words on the topic of my choice, 1,000 words on I don't know what, I don't know how, I don't know why, I do know that the stakes are high. Dear someone, dear anyone, you are the topic of my choice. Am I the topic of yours? You're asking me. Now I'm asking you. I'm asking you.
Thank you, Molly. Thank you, Molly. Our next speaker, David Kaiser, is a historian, college professor, and author, and he was one of Bill's most devoted friends. David also participated enthusiastically with Bill in his crusade to reduce the financial burden on today's college students. As it turns out, a few days before Bill passed away, we began to hear about the changing tuition policies at a number of the major universities that Bill had lobbied so persistently. As a result, many students will find college much more affordable. David Kaiser.
I first met Bill Strauss on a June afternoon in 1994 at our 25th reunion at Harvard. Although I had already read and taught his first book on the Vietnam-era draft, Chance and Circumstance, I did not recognize him as the author. Merely as an interesting guy who talked about recent history with a vocabulary all his own, with a somewhat frightening certainty, but in a way that seemed to make a lot of sense. It was about a year or two later that I picked Generations off the shelf of my school library and started to read it, and for most of that week I was too excited to sleep. A few days later I called Bill, reintroduced myself, and said that I thought he had gotten the boundaries of the GI generation off, he and Neil. We started talking about that, and that thus began a very long and intense friendship. Bill Strauss was a dear friend of mine, and together with Neil Howe, a truly great historian. I too could talk a lot about the time I spent with Bill and his family. That became really a second home. About the campaign we were involved in against Harvard, and about our many points of agreement and disagreement. But I'd like to talk about his work as a historian, which I think reveals parts of him which other things did not. In the books Generations and the Fourth Turning, Bill and Neil literally rediscovered America and opened our eyes to new ways of seeing the world. And that was an extraordinary achievement. There is no one, literally no one in my own generation from whom I've learned as much as I did from them. Meanwhile, they were revealing a great deal about themselves. Now, their work focuses on four archetypes, four different kinds of people or generations, which they saw recurring through history. They called them prophets, nomads, heroes, and artists, and there are some of all four here today. As Bill explained to me, they believed that we all have each of the archetypes within us, but the era of our birth determines which one will predominate. What strikes me as I think about Bill today is how he indeed showed the characteristics of all four in different ways and in different parts of his life. That isn't surprising. He and Neil could hardly have seen them all so clearly if they had not seen them in themselves. Generation X represents the nomad type of generation, and Neil and Bill were among the first to identify and understand Generation X. Bill had nomadic tendencies of his own. He worked for himself, often by himself, and when and how and on what he wanted. There were also some nomadic or Gen X elements in his early life history, and like so many Gen Xers, he reacted to them in his own life by an absolute and total devotion and commitment to his own family. Bill was also reserved in many ways, and he was not really, in many ways, an easy man to know. Bill's life also showed some of the heroic aspects that we identify with the GI generation and today's millennials, who became, in a way, his great love, too. He counted on the millennial generation to undo so much of what he disliked about contemporary society. Meanwhile, over the last 8 years of his life, after his diagnosis, he acted the part of a hero. He refused, sometimes, I must say, to the frustration of some of his friends, to make any concessions to his disease, even when he was obviously running considerable risks. He was determined to go on being Bill Strauss up to the very end, and that is exactly what he did. The tremendous organization he put together in Cappies also represented that kind of archetype. And Bill could even be, like the silent generation, now the older generation, something of an empathetic artist. Certainly that's what he was in the early days of the Fourth Turning website that he and Neil founded in the late 90s when he was a regular participant. Incidentally, I've been asked to announce that there will be a gathering of some of the posters on that website after the reception here at the King Street Blues at about 6. If you're interested, try to find Jenny Genscher, a.k.a. the One Cat, at the reception. In those days on the website, Bill emerged as a person of extraordinary politeness who treated every opinion equally and wanted everyone to feel at home. In addition, despite his often uncompromising moral views, I was one of those who found, in the midst of a personal crisis of my own, that Bill could be extremely understanding towards a friend in trouble. Many of us, I think, found in crisis that his bark could be a lot worse than his bite. But above all, Bill was a prophet in every sense of the word. It is thanks to Bill and Neil that I've come to understand both the strengths and weaknesses of my own prophet generation, the baby boomers. Like those very first two prophets, Adam and Eve, we decided at a very early age that we would make our own judgments about good and evil. We take life and ourselves very seriously. We tend to believe that whatever we want must be best, not only for ourselves, but for anyone else involved. We want our lives to have a definite purpose. Each one of us believes in our own uniqueness, and frankly, we don't mind being the center of attention. And above all, perhaps, we have an unshakable, scary confidence in our own wisdom. All of this, and America and the world has now come to learn this the hard way, makes us utterly disastrous when we happen to be wrong, and utterly invaluable if we happen to be right. Bill and I had our disagreements, but Bill was right much, much more often than he was wrong. That, I think, in a very profound sense, is why we are all here today. I have never known anyone with a more unique set of views than Bill Strauss. He made up his mind quickly, especially about people, and he rarely changed it. He was in many ways an eccentric, but one who often believed that that was the fault of the rest of the world. Certain contemporaries, in particular, became the objects of his wrath, and his emotions sometimes prevailed over his brain, certainly another characteristic of prophets. Thus, I was proud to be associated with Bill in our campaign against the payment of multi-million-dollar bonuses at Harvard, and I shared his view that income of, say, over $3 million a year ought to be taxed at 100%. Yet I will also remember one of our very last conversations, surveying the political scene early last December, when he expressed great excitement over Barack Obama and what he stood for, but when he also commented